Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Think and Reform podcast. My name is Luke Saint. Today, with me, I have a very special guest, Randall Zimmerman. Let me just move this out of the way so you can see my face there on the camera. Randall Zimmerman is a lifelong farmer. Randall Zimmerman is from same county that I'm from, Berks County. You are from northern Berks County, the Burnville area, an area you've become very familiar with.
Yes, sir.
What you're going to hear from Randall today is somewhat of a treat that most of you listening, well, maybe not most of you if we are local, a lot of people have not heard. You're going to hear a very strong Mennonite accent coming from Randall. Now, a lot of people across the United States have never heard this before, and they'll maybe watch The Office, or they'll watch some sort of, because the only people making movies about the Amish and the Mennonites these days are, is Hallmark. And people will be like, try to give it like a German accent. And even, what was that one they made a while back with Kirstie Alley and I forget it, but they made it about Amish people, and everyone had like a German accent. It's like, no, that's not the accent that these guys have. So as you hear Randall talk, you're going to hear him bring out the traditional horning Mennonite.
Oh my goodness. Do I really actually sound like that?
Like what?
Like that Dutch accent. I have
course.
that?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty strong. I mean, I've heard.
Really?
I've heard more strong. Stuffing out the strongest. I've heard guys. I mean, you get deep into Lancaster County. I mean, especially down there in Quarryville, a lot of those guys. I mean, it's really strong. But you is definitely more of a Berks County flair to it. Yes.
Yeah, it's a different Dutch. That's right.
So tell us about. So the reason I have Randall on, what we're going to be talking about today. The reason I have Randall on today is. We're going to be talking about the government's effect on Randall's commerce and his family and his extended family, and the regulation that he has to go through, how it affects him. And this is also to do with what we say at Future of Christendom and Think and Reform and Lancaster Patriot and Poking the Bear. We're often pointing out that when the government interferes in our commerce, it just makes things worse. Whatever problem you're trying to solve, it's probably already being solved by somebody else, and somebody who's a businessman. They're already working these problems out, and a lot of people think that, well, if the government doesn't solve them, then nobody will. But we're going to be talking about some things, some regulation that happens outside of government interference, outside of legislation, and a lot of people think, how could this be possible? There's no way. No, it definitely happens. Randall interacts with it all the time. So we're going to be talking about the Department of Ag, inspections, all that kind of thing, raw milk, Amos Miller. We're going to be talking about all that. So, Randall, give some of your background. Where did you grow up, and what was life like growing up with you in a family of farmers?
So, yeah, my dad bought the farm in 1979. He was the oldest of 9 siblings.
Okay, how many acres are we talking here?
So it would have been 117 acres.
117, okay.
Yeah.
Previously farmed, do you have to clear it out?
No, it was previously farmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
A lot of, when you come into a new situation, there's always things you want to make better. And when, he wanted to milk cows. Okay. And updating things but yeah, as far as the land, I mean, yeah, it was a lot more wild back then.
Okay. Yeah. You guys got a lot of it plowed out. I mean, you got some heavy machinery. You probably didn't start off with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you grew up in that environment. What was that like?
So I was born in '86. Obviously, my growing up, we had a barn fire actually in 1990. Oh wow! So there was a whole new barn being built. So a lot of things that my brother and sister dealt with, I didn't have to deal with. They shoveled feed out of the silo, and I have a feed cart where I'm running feed out. Okay. And loaders that work better. And just we kept updating. But we all had responsibilities growing up. I milked cows before I went to school. That was just kind of normal. Okay. It always blows my mind when people are late to somewhere and they don't have to get up and take care of things. It's like they just have to wake up and be there.
Yeah, but I mean, growing up and to this day, you're married to those cows.
Yeah. So I was just thinking of on the way here, I can't believe I've been milking cows twice a day for 20 years, morning and night.
Morning and night. Yeah, but you get vacations, right? People come and, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to basically schedule somebody who knows what they're doing.
That's right.
I helped you out one time, and you asked me to stick a needle in the butt of a cow, and you kept saying to me every time I got close to it, you're like, okay, yeah, it's easy, just go do it. I'm like, okay. Every time I got close, he'd be like, careful, he might kick you. I get back, and then he'd be like, no, it's easy. And I get closer, and he'd be like, careful, he might kick you. And I was just like, I tried to do it, I didn't do it. You had to go up and do it for me. He says, well, hall of shame for me. I really want to do it, but I felt like I was making everything nervous, and I think I did see a couple cows try to kick you while you were doing it because you had to give them a shot because it was infected milk or something.
So it was just assistant letting the milk down.
Okay.
Maybe they had a problem with issue with their udder or their teat.
Okay.
That they just assisted that.
Okay. All right.
It's real simple. Yeah.
All right, but your whole schedule revolves around those cows.
It does. Yeah. Vacations were like 2.5 days, and.
Wow.
And you would milk cows in the morning, and you would like pack the car, or a family would get together. And the thing that was neat though, it was planned. Like we didn't just leave nilly willy. Like like, hey, we're gonna go camping this weekend. No.
Okay.
Like, we went to the beach in August, and we went to the cabin in the mountains in June.
Okay.
So that was it. 3 days.
Wow.
2.5. Yep.
Oh wow.
And we have to be back for the evening milking.
Why couldn't it be? Why couldn't it be 7 days? I mean, why couldn't it be a full week?
I don't know. It's just what we did.
It's just what you did. Now, your parents obviously they got out of the Horning Mennonites somehow.
Yeah, so that was before my older siblings would have experienced that.
Okay.
So yeah, they did.
Shunning going on there? Anything?
No, I guess not.
Okay.
And I don't remember that part.
Okay, so the Hornings would be the old order Mennonites, correct? I mean, we were talking about black buggies.
So that would have been my grandpa. That
Okay.
would have split from that.
Okay, that was your grandpa that initiated that. Okay.
So basically, he, one day he's like, you know what? I'm going to drive a car because I think I'm going to drive a car.
Okay.
So he came home with the car. And
Wow.
then that Sunday, they went to a different church.
Wow.
The church that had cars.
Now, did they become black bumper at that point, or I mean, did he like embrace any sort of like Protestant faith? I mean, was this a shift in his faith, or was he like, I just want to
have a car.
Just want to have a car. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There's nothing about cars in the Bible, and I think we can have a car.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah. I think everything was kind of the same. Yeah.
Everything up beyond that was just kind of the same. Okay. And he could not attend that church and have a car at the same time.
The previous one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that church
split?
Okay.
Yeah. So the church that So I'm not really like completely sure about like how that all
went down.
Split, it all went down. I know like my grandparents were buried at that church that they grew up at.
Okay.
And it's horse and buggy.
Okay.
Mennonite.
Okay. So, horse and buggy Mennonite. Yes. Well,
okay. That's what I call it. I don't know what it was.
But for you and your faith, I mean, would you describe yourself as Protestant, Reformed, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, Reformed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you get into that coming out of such an Anabaptist background? Or were your parents Reformed? I mean, did they get you into that? At the right church?
So I'm actually attending the church that my parents took me to when I was a kid.
Okay.
And at the church had made some leadership change. It was a Mennonite church.
Okay.
And when I was probably maybe like 7, 8 to 13, somewhere in there, 7 to 13,
okay.
At that age, that's when it shifted.
Okay.
And it went Reformed, and that was a leadership change. We split from
Mennonite denomination.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think what the proper name for that was. I'm not sure what that was.
Okay. All right.
If you say it, I'll be like, yeah, that's what it is.
Okay. I'm not up on my.
You're not up on it.
No, yeah. I'm not up on mine. So I mean, parents didn't mind about that. I mean, they were cool with it. I mean.
I believe so. I mean, I guess they didn't talk about that part of it. You know? They just felt like, well, the rest of the church is good, and
yeah, didn't want to make waves.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's actually probably. That's probably you probably said.
I mean, it sounds like Mennonites to me. I mean, that's
don't want to make waves.
Yeah, don't want to make waves.
That's not fixed what ain't broken.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, just let's real quick go through a couple things that you need to know when you come to Lancaster County, when you come to even Berks County, and where else are we talking about? There's not much up in Schuylkill, right? Chester County, they have much Amish and Mennonite presence. I mean, Lancaster County is the heart
Yeah. So I mean, it's there is in Schuylkill. There's in Berks
Okay.
County. Yeah, it's moving. The I would say the Amish Mennonite. Yeah, it's definitely
They're spreading.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought they were losing all their kids to Rumspringa and all that kind of stuff.
No.
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 Okay. A lot of them are coming back after the parties and stuff. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, like I'm just saying, like the families. I don't know. Like it. Yeah. I don't. They're moving into our area. I don't know as far as how their families and who's leaving and how it's shrinking or expanding.
Okay.
But the families are coming in and moving into our area, and it's a good thing in a way. It's a good thing in a way that I feel like it's from the farming perspective, where they do a really good job. They bring innovation.
Okay.
Whether it's welding shops and infrastructure and services, and it's good. It's
they're not.
good in that sense.
They're not. The Mennonites don't have a big, college presence, and that's good because they since that whole lifestyle is centered around farming industry. You want more people who also are centered around farming industry, and you're saying as they move in, they're developing skills that can conduce to the farming industry.
Right. Yeah.
So it's
businesses. I mean, I've been up into places like New York State.
Okay.
And there's just nothing. And I bought a green bin off of somebody, and we're like, I'm interested in geography. I'm like, what's up here? What's the dirt like? And they're growing. This was in the Catskills up in New York.
Okay.
And the guy's like, yeah, man. He's like, I actually drive to Lancaster County to get supplies.
What?
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Wow.
I'm like, really?
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, because it's way cheaper. I'm like, oh. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he says it's just, I'll make a trip down there with a gooseneck trailer, and I'll get my bale wrap, I'll get my spray chemicals, and that's the infrastructure that I'm talking about.
Wow.
And up there, he's like, yeah, people are like asking me like, hey, can you like tend for my field?
Oh wow.
Because like nobody else wants to farm it.
Oh wow.
The deer eat everything, and like, you can grow hay, but like, what's the value of hay if you don't have beef cattle to eat it or dairy?
Okay.
And so you'll have, and kudos to the Mennonites, they'll go up in that area and like make it alive, so to speak.
Yes.
And we're like, hey, we're going to do dairy, and we're going to sell our own dairy.
Right.
If nobody wants to come up here and get milk, and we're going to make produce, and we're going to have some beef on the side, and whatever. We're going to make it. We eat a little less.
Yeah, I mean that's something I saw when I went down to Brazil to see where my wife grew up, and they don't do anything in acres down there. It's all hectares.
Okay. Yep.
So we're talking hundreds of hectares of land, hundreds of square miles of land, and these guys have all this space. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, if a Mennonite or an Amish guy came down here, you would not see one tree standing. I mean, you'd see little clumps of trees, but the whole place is like, very much, there's very little dominion. That community down there, they do enough to get by for each other and for themselves. Right. They're not trying to turn this into a business.
See, that's interesting. See, I think it's all about the family.
Okay.
So I think it's like they're doing their farming for their kids. So they're buying $1 million farms or higher, but they're never going to see that paid off. They're buying it so their kids can have a livelihood. And I think it's more about family and like
the next generation.
Yeah. And I'm not saying there's no fighting amongst the family, but we're all humans, right?
Right.
But yet they have a sense of getting along. They're not, the brothers and sisters aren't all fighting each other and this is mine, and when so and so dies, then I get that. Yeah. And then they stick together and help each other, and they can actually do more because they're a group.
Okay.
One uncle has the harvester, the other uncle has the combine, and the other guy has the cows, and the other one has the chickens. Okay. And they do each other's work.
And they help each other out. Right. Do you see an abuse of that? I mean, I would think all the time, like, maybe one guy doesn't work as hard as the other, and he's like, hey, can you come do this? Put up a barn for me. But then but since he's just a chicken guy, all I can do is give you eggs in return. You know what I'm saying? I mean, does that kind of stuff go on? And what do you think? Do you think the bartering is pretty solid with those guys?
I think it's pretty solid. I think they figure it out.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we're human though.
Yeah.
It's
something you experience. Obviously, your brother has a chicken farm.
Yeah.
You have a dairy farm. and Roy, he sells chips.
Yeah. He's a potato farmer, right?
Oh, he does potatoes. Okay.
No, he sells chips.
Oh, he sells chips.
He sells potatoes, right?
All right. Okay. Okay. All right. And so you bought the place from your folks.
Oh no, I don't own the dirt that I
Okay.
sleep on. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
So no, and that's just a transition.
Okay, but you're basically your family is running the dairy farm,
Yes.
and your dad and your mom have retired.
So yeah, mostly.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Farmers don't ever retire.
Okay. Right. Right. I mean that makes sense. I mean, after working with your hands for so long, how could you stop?
Just stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what Solomon says. It's nothing better for man than to take pleasure in the toil of his hands.
Right.
So I can definitely you probably never lose that desire, you know.
Right. I mean, I own at this point. I own the cows. I own equipment.
Okay.
I do own some property.
Okay.
But not the main home farm that we grew up on.
Okay.
I mean, it's promised that because I'm taking the cows and equipment that I'll have the first chance at purchasing it.
Okay.
But it's just over time. It's just a transition.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Let me turn your mic up here real quick.
Yeah, I'm not.
There
There we go. I'm not looking at it like I should.
Yeah, no worries, man. I was kind of like looking at the numbers, and I'm seeing I'm spiking pretty hard, but you're not spiking that much. I just want to make sure that your mic was working effectively.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you took over for your parents, and now you're out there. You're married to those cows. I mean,
Yeah.
every morning, every night. What time are you up in the morning?
Not as early as I should be.
Okay.
It just depends. I mean, we start
Ideally.
milking at 6 o'clock. I'll be
Okay.
up at 5.
Okay.
And it's just a regular thing. Sometimes I'll do a field work before. Maybe I'll haul a couple loads of manure. You just start at 3.
Okay.
And there's sometimes you just do like all night stuff. You know, in the fall here we're really busy.
Okay.
And it's just to keep things flowing. It's like, well, I got to get that done so my hired help can do this. Or,
Okay. slow season be winter.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're coming into that right now.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
I'm just kind of working through stereotypes and some things that I've always wondered, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners would be like, I don't even know what it's like to run a dairy farm, and what are the responsibilities, and where I have to be at what time, but there is a slow season officially. Winter is a slow season.
Yeah, and sometimes we say like there's a lull during the summer, but sometimes it's like a lot of times it's like, wow, where did that law go? It's not.
Oh.
It's just like
Breakneck speed, working all the
just
time.
all summer.
And
just
how many sons are you up to now?
4.
You got 4. Yeah, praise the Lord for sons, man. I mean, how could you be any more thankful? I mean, you're running a farm. You got to have sons out there helping.
And they help. It's great. So the oldest is 10.
Okay.
And he's every morning. I give him off on Tuesdays
Okay.
because he goes to a homeschool group.
Okay.
My wife is a homeschool teacher.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent.
And yeah, so they all have their responsibilities.
Okay.
And
4 boys and a daughter.
and a daughter.
Okay. Yeah. Praise the Lord, man. Yeah. So, all right. And now, do you get any sort of? I mean, this shouldn't be asking this question this day and age, but do you get any sort of pressure by PETA or anyone coming on your property protesting you, maybe saying this is unethical? Because a lot of people are they look at a cow. Mm-hmm. And they say, look, you can see its bones sticking out. And of course, to anyone who's been around a cow for more than 5 minutes, you're like, yeah, every cow, unless it's like some sort of He-Man Buddha cow. I mean, they're all like that. The bones of their butts stick out all the time, and their shoulders and all that. And people are like, oh, they're underfed, Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people look at dairy farmers and they just hate them because they're like, oh, you mistreat all the cows. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you ever run into that?
No, we actually have not at our place.
Okay. Have you heard about other people run into that?
Yeah, actually, I was just talking about it to a friend here last week about where he had a year-old steer, and he didn't have a shelter for it. It was just outside. It was cold, and somebody reported him, and the Humane Society came.
What?
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, that poor thing, But I'm like, it's a year old. I said, was it thin? No, it was fat. It was, so the Humane Society wanted him to surrender this valuable animal.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So you know how much beef costs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They actually wanted him to pay them to take the animal because they felt like it was not in a good situation. And he was just like, yo, I'm going to send it to the butcher like tomorrow if I wanted to. Like this thing chops. He wanted to raise it.
Yeah, right.
And it, he wanted to build a little shelter for it. It's not like he didn't want that. It was okay in the situation it was.
Okay.
But we live back off the road.
Okay.
We have good relationships with neighbors. A lot of times that those complaints are from people that you live around.
Okay.
And,
right. You see what you're doing. Right.
Yeah. And it's a little, I do worry a little bit because we have a massive influx of people that aren't happy with where they live in the city or I'll point out New York, New Jersey,
yes.
right?
They come and they're like, I know how to farm, or I know what ethical treatment of an animal is.
Or they're just like, whoa, there's a cow.
Yeah.
Wow, it's snowing out. Is that thing okay? It doesn't have a blanket.
Right. Now, you told me, and I was shocked by this, even growing up in this area my whole life, some of the cows that you get are so hardy, you didn't put a roof over them all year.
Exactly.
Yeah. And which ones were they? The Highlanders, you said?
Yeah, Highlanders. Okay. I have Irish Dexter cattle.
Okay, that's right. That you told me about those. You said
they have a double hair coat.
Double hair coat. Yeah. Okay, and you left them out. It was a really bad winter.
Yep.
I remember that
winter.
year. I was like, this is a particularly bad winter, and you left them out. Not a roof over their head at any point.
Nothing. They'll find a spot where the wind doesn't catch them, where the sun shines in the morning.
Okay.
And they're just happy. They're just chewing their cud out in the snow.
Now in the snow, you actually have to dump grain for them.
Oh yeah. Because
okay.
they don't have, that's right.
Right, but they don't have the vegetation.
Right.
But I was shocked to find out that you left them out there all year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And not everything can, Okay. And a lot of things, what's good for the cow, what's good for the animals is good for us too, financially. And we want to care for our cows. We don't want a skinny cow.
Right.
We want them well conditioned in the wintertime.
Okay.
I have a heifer barn. We raise our young stock. That's we call them heifers. Okay. Holstein heifers. And we have a Virginia style heifer barn. And I always say it should be in Virginia, not in Pennsylvania. But it's a challenge. We try to keep things clean. In the wintertime, we actually up the energy level, the corn that would help keep more weight on them to go through the cold season. It takes energy in cold weather.
Just a couple questions here. So the brown corn that they're harvesting after, obviously the humans, we eat the green corn, right? We don't eat the brown stuff, right? That's animal food? Is that what you feed your cows?
I do believe that. Oops, sorry about that. Just yanked my cord.
That's okay.
Is it good? Swinging my arms. It's a little claustrophobic.
As long as you can hear. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
It is used for human consumption.
Okay.
I call it field corn versus sweet corn. So like the green stuff that you would maybe eat as sweet. Okay. We enjoy in July and August. That's sweet. We call
corn
it
on the cob.
Corn.
Okay, sweet corn.
Sweet corn.
Good.
Yeah. So a different variety of corn.
Okay.
So that it is made into corn. Corn flakes.
Yeah.
We use it for animal food.
Okay. All right. And take me through the terminology here. We got steer, heifer, Holstein. I mean, I believe steer is just a male cow that's been castrated, right? Mm-hmm. And what's a male cow that hasn't been castrated? Just be a bull.
Yep.
All right. And a female cow would be
a cow.
Just a regular cow. Right. Right. But they don't get fixed or anything like that. I mean,
no.
You have to keep them getting pregnant to get the milk out. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. On average, they'll have a calf a year.
A calf a year. Yep. And that keeps the milk 24/7, 7 days a week, 365?
You got it.
Okay.
Twice a day we milk.
Okay.
Sometimes they're coming out with like robotic systems.
Yes.
That will.
I was going to ask you about that. You trying to get that?
It's a thought in the back of my mind.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, the cow will go through a gate system.
Yeah.
When they want to go to feed and when they want to be milked. Mm-hmm. So a cow that just had a calf that has a lot of milk, they'll go through that like often.
Okay.
Because they want to be relieved and
this,
have their
this obviously increases the milk production, right? Because if he's doing it 4 or 5 times a day versus twice a day with just you, right? Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes like my cows, my really high producing cows, they're like mooing when I come.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's a girl.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Growing up, I think I discovered that recently. That to keep the milk going, I forgot. I thought they just produced it naturally, but no, you have to actually keep getting them pregnant.
Well, they have the calf. They have milk for their calf.
Okay, right.
And then we feed their calf with their milk, and we keep the extra.
Okay, and do you separate the calf from the cow right away?
With my beef animals,
yeah, okay.
I don't. I let the cow raise the calf. With my Holstein, which is a breed of cow that's predominantly used for milk.
The black and white.
Yep, the black and white. Mm-hmm. So we pull the calf away.
Okay.
And we'll feed that calf the mother's milk.
Okay.
At the beginning.
That's going to be pretty tough, like keeping track of what mother's feeding what cow and all that kind of stuff. Or is that easy?
Just at the beginning. Yeah. We separate the milk from the regular that doesn't go in the milk tank.
Okay.
Just for until the cow produces a little bit more cleaner milk, so to speak.
Okay.
Instead of colostrum, that's at the beginning. We want the calf to have that colostrum. It's really, really good stuff.
And I mean, is that good for humans too, or do humans notice, or is like not really good? You don't want to have that in the milk supply.
So, I'm not sure. I know there's people that say they drink cow colostrum, like Jersey cow colostrum.
Okay.
And I'm not sure about
specialty or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some people are weird. Some people eat octopus.
So if a cow has, one of the reasons we hold it out, if a cow has a little bit of mastitis, when we dry them off, we say we go, we milk them for 7 months. After well, no, it would be more like 9 months, 10 months. We'll milk them for 10 months. But when they're getting soon to have a calf, for 2 months we put them on vacation. That's what we call it.
Okay.
We call them a dry cow. So they back off on milk production, and we stop milking them. If they have mastitis, an infection in their udder, we'll give them an antibiotic. We'll treat them.
Okay.
Okay. So when the cow comes back milking, we don't want that milk in the tank.
Okay.
So
when you give them that antibiotic, does that make it non-organic?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you do? I mean, what do organic farmers do when the cow has an infection? You know, how do they treat that but still have the milk organic? Or is it like over? Like the cow's done? Like we can't do organic milk ever?
So what'll happen is, cows have 4 teats in an udder, and one teat will get mastitis.
Okay.
A lot of times that quarter will naturally just dry up and stop giving milk.
Okay.
So that farmer will just lose, it's fine. We call him a 3-teater.
Okay.
That's
actually interesting enough. If you're familiar with the Grand Teton Mountains in Montana.
No, I'm not. I've heard that. Yeah.
Same root word there. Tetons.
Okay.
Yeah, some perverted Frenchman was like, I wonder what those look like. So they called them the Grand Tetons. Okay, but there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're becoming we develop more things to be proactive. That's the name of the game when it comes to farming. There's probiotics. The amount of mastitis that I'm dealing with now has been way low.
Okay.
So the amount of antibiotics, which is like a reaction to a problem, we're using way less.
Okay.
So for example, pneumonia, it can be common in a calf.
Okay.
It can be, but if you adjust their environment to no draft in the wintertime, you want them dry. All the things PETA would want.
Right.
So you don't want a calf to get pneumonia. Their lung capacity, their body system will not be a productive cow as an adult.
Okay.
So basically, with mastitis, the prevention is is absolutely the best.
Okay.
So.
All right. So I mean, talking about your PETA and your friend, what he had to go through, one thing we encourage here on one thing we're trying to promote on Think and Reform podcast and Future of Christendom is we're trying to challenge people in the way they think about politics. As we were talking before the podcast, what America did with the foundation of this nation is we've created a political class with the legislature and the executive branch. We've created a political class and much of the judicial branch as well, unfortunately. A lot of people think that you need a political class to have a country. We've kind of made peace with that as Americans. If we didn't have the 3 branches, then we wouldn't have America. We wouldn't have freedom. What we try to point out all the time is that, we don't have freedom. If you stop paying your taxes, if you stop making an income paying taxes, there was a time in this nation where if you lost all your money, you could ostensibly live off the land and not pay a single cent of tax because there was no income tax, there was no land tax for some places, and you could just ostensibly just live. We're not free in this nation, and when I talked to you earlier about what was going on with the Whiskey Rebellion, we were technically never free. The way the Bible describes liberty, when God says proclaim liberty throughout the land, he means something different than what we meant when we founded this nation. That's one thing we're pointing out to people. And one thing we use all the time is the example of what the farmers have to deal with. Amos Miller. We are slaves to the state. He just wants to sell raw milk. The Bible says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. if someone can show me where Amos Miller was not doing that and selling somebody raw milk, I'm all ears. Tell me and show me where Amos Miller violated God's law by selling somebody some raw milk. But we Americans were like, well, if we don't have somebody regulating this, so watching over this, because people who drink raw milk die, obviously. If we don't have somebody keeping an eye on what's going on between the commerce of these people, then we won't have prosperity, we won't have order, we won't have peace. We'll just have chaos, and people will be poisoning each other with raw milk every single day. And so I brought you on here to talk about how it has the federal government made your life easier? Has it made it harder? What are some hoops that you have to go through in your daily life that are hindering your ability to take dominion over the earth? You talked about you interact with the township a lot. Have they gotten on your case about silly things, like, I don't know, this fence isn't the right place, or the fence isn't far enough away from the border? I mean, tell me about how you as a farmer have interacted with either local, state, or federal government, especially with inspections.
Yeah, so something real recent. Maybe you've heard of land preservation.
Okay.
And the idea initially is good. We want to preserve farms. We want to make a law that, like, maybe that's not a law, but we want to make a section of land that does not turn into development houses.
Yes.
Because we need food.
Right.
So
and people want to live around farms. I mean,
right.
We love living around farms.
You're right.
Yeah.
And so that you can sell your right to develop land.
Yes, to the government. Who hold on to it.
Yeah, so it would still be our land, but we sold that right. I guess that's an easement.
Okay, right. So you can get it back?
No, it's gone. They pay you.
But you can't even pay it and buy it back? Like, if you wanted to? Like, I never mind, here's the money back. I want it back.
No, I don't think so.
It's gone forever.
It's gone. So, like, that goes with the deed as well.
Wow. Okay.
So in other words, if a warehouse they want to build on a preserve farm,
it's not going to happen.
Yeah. All the money in the world, because really that would be that easement, that payment is peanuts to commercial property.
Okay. Right.
So they're like, no, it ain't happening.
Okay.
So like that easement on our farm was done like years and years ago.
Okay.
And so I'm building new buildings, expanding my property, expanding my facilities, and they're
growing.
Yeah. They want to, I got 4 boys, we're gonna expand. And they want to be like, hey, let us know, because we got to give you permission to do that.
Okay.
But before, it's like, you're ag, you're fine, you can do whatever you want.
Really? Before what, like 30 years ago, 40 years ago?
20, 30, yeah.
Okay.
20, 30 years ago.
They didn't care.
They didn't care. Like,
okay.
It's ag, just no houses, no development, no non-ag.
Okay. Right.
But now they're like, hey, you got to let us know, So we'll
pole barn.
We'll prove it. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is.
Okay.
Just, and so
all right.
That just kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. It's like it depends on the board, because that changes.
Right.
There's different people.
Yes.
So there's people that made this whole idea. They're long gone of land preservation, or they're long gone.
Yeah.
But now you have a new
generation.
You have a new generation of people that are like, well, land preservation means this. So, but we have the rights to your farm. So if we all agree, so has anything been bad? No.
Okay.
They just want a pat on the back and recognition, and that's fine.
All right. I mean, you haven't had
my farm is preserved.
Okay, but you haven't had to deal with any sort of weird fines or anything like that.
No.
Now, I know you said you get scared when the inspector comes around. Talk about that.
So that's health. That's the health of.
But you have to deal with 3 different inspectors, right? From 3 different levels.
2 levels. So federal and state.
Okay, federal and state.
Federal and state. So the one that we really worry about is the federal.
Okay.
It seems that they always send a person that like doesn't know what cows are. Like they're like, okay, we got a rule book here. Let's see. Are you check?
Is it really that bad?
It is.
Really?
Yeah. We tried it. We just leave.
Okay.
We don't want to be around when they're there.
You don't have to be there.
No, you don't have to be unless they ask. Then we're like, oh man.
Oh. Okay. And so they're using basically this rule book that's kind of out of touch with the reality of what you have to deal with, and they're making these generalizations, these claims, and these questions when they have no experience.
Right.
And that's frustrating to you.
Yeah. So like, for example, the one guy was there when federal guy was there when my dad was milking cows,
Okay.
And we'll like force strip the milk out to inspect it.
Yeah.
Now we do this twice a day, every day. We're good at this. We can actually feel when there's something wrong, and we want to detect something.
Right.
We don't want to just not worry about it.
Right. No, you're just scared of a government fine. You do not care about what the milk is like. It's just a government fine.
Yeah. So he's standing there and he's like bending over and watching my dad real careful. And he's like, whoa, you didn't like hold this special like plate thing to spray it on to inspect the milk before you put the milker on the cow. Wow. And we're like, yes, sir. We'll do that just for you.
But that's how petty they get.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, we just.
Have you ever lost big quantities of milk? Have they ever tried to take anything from you?
No.
The inspectors.
No. The state inspector is really good.
Okay.
He's more down to earth. We know who he is. He lives in this community.
Okay.
And he's just like
basically
hey,
gives it a look. I see what you're doing.
Yeah, keep things clean. Like hey,
Yeah.
those cows there, they ought to have a haircut.
Okay.
And then wash the barn walls too. Yep, we just didn't get there yet.
Okay.
We'll get that too. We want it clean. We want our cows.
Right.
Everything.
I think that's something that a lot of people in government, especially, don't realize that dirty costs money. To be dirty costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
It initially costs no money to be dirty, but once you're in a business, and the more dirty you are, the more money you have to spend later on bad products, complaints from customers, cleaning up stuff that if you would have just maintained it, you would have been fine. But since you let it build up, now you have to spend more money to get it clean. Being dirty is bad business, and a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, if we don't have the government here to make everybody clean, everybody would be dirty. Well, yes and no, but I mean, the answer is really no. I mean, as your exhibit A, yeah, we're already cleaning. We don't need you to come in here and tell us how to clean. We're cleaning everything.
Right.
And that's what you come across with these inspectors. Are like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and clean it? Yeah, I'm gonna clean it. I'm already cleaning it.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff that you experience.
Yeah. And like soaps, they're always watching chemicals and stuff like that.
Okay.
They're really concerned about our water. What's our water come from? So guess who's concerned about water? I am. Because we drink our own water.
Right.
Like, okay, the cow's one thing, but I'm concerned about what my kids are drinking.
Yes.
Like,
right. Yeah.
Yes. It's a really high concern. They're looking at our well cap. Yeah, that's important, but dude, we got that covered.
Yeah, right.
It's
so they don't trust you. I mean, they think that you're too stupid to figure these things out by yourself. Well, I mean, I don't want to say anything about your state inspector. Sounds like a nice guy, but the people who make these laws, they come along and they sit around in an ivory tower and they say, well, what if X happens? What if people are so stupid they won't even check their own water? Well, we got to do something. We got to start passing laws to force people to start checking their water because they're too dumb to do it without us. So, I mean, and that's the attitude that they have. And that's why you have to fight through layers and layers of regulation. And how often do you get hit with, I mean, you just gave me an example of them hitting you with a regulation. You had no idea, right? Obviously you had to put it on, and you're like, okay, new rule. All right, fine. I guess we'll change.
Well, we did. When he left, we just went back.
Yeah. But I'm sure you experienced that a lot where they're like, this is a new regulation. You had no idea.
Right. And yeah, I mean, we try to be at peace with those people that come because, so I don't know. And I don't know if this is right. You fulfill their whatever
their desires,
that they need, and then
right.
you just go on with life. And,
right.
And it's timing too. They come twice a year. The state inspector does. And it's like, man, I got to get this place cleaned up to his specs.
Yeah, right. Right.
It's already cleaned up. We had a family get together, and we got to clean the barn too because there could be one uncle that comes and looks in the barn, and we can't have it dirty.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Your own families, your own inspectors.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Especially if the family's in the business,
right?
You'd be judging each other, judging each other harshly. Okay, that's interesting. So, I mean, any surprise inspection? I mean, the federal, when they're coming around, they give you a call before they come around?
It's surprise, yeah. The federal, the dairy kind of tips us. I'm like,
oh, okay.
The state surprise. We asked, like, hey, the milkman, hey, have you seen the inspector lately?
Okay. Did they do it by region? Like, hey, I saw one on the farm over there. He's probably in this area, kind of a thing.
I think federal is like that.
Okay.
But the state is more with the dairy. The dairy sends him out.
Okay.
And that's why the dairy picks the inspector, I believe, or it's hired by the inspector is hired by the the dairy.
Okay.
Who we ship our milk to.
Okay.
So that's why.
So the business is basically sending the inspector to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Right.
Okay.
Because they're required to have an inspector.
They're required to have an inspector. Okay.
Right.
Do you think they'd send an inspector if they weren't, even if they weren't required to by the state?
No, probably they. No,
They probably have their own inspectors, right?
They probably would. They probably just
inspect it their own way.
An employee would come down and be just
quality control.
Yeah,
that's what we call in the business world. We call it quality control. It's a real thing. You just look it up. I mean, but again, this is like talking to people. Like if we didn't have the state controlling everything, then nobody would do it. It'd be chaos and confusion. And we have people speculating that if we didn't have the state telling us what side of the road to drive on, we'd be getting in accidents all the time. That's how stupid we are. We without the state, we can't do these things.
No, we do it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I mean. The whole reason for this podcast was across our street is a huge cornfield, and as I was watching the harvester, and the harvester has these spikes that are evenly positioned to get the maximum amount of corn stalks as it goes down the rows. It perfectly gets the corn stalks. And do you know how far apart they are? I mean, what's the standard?
Standard's like 30 inches. Yeah.
30 inches. Okay. Yeah. And so the spikes are positioned 30 inches apart. And I'm wondering, so a politician is going to look at that and say, well, if we don't tell these people, what if somebody puts it 34 inches apart? And what if someone else puts it 2 feet apart? And what if someone else puts it 30? We need a regulation to make them all the same, so that John Deere can make one machine for the whole thing, and it'll be all quicker. That's the kind of thing that politicians do. And I called up Randall, and I was like, hey, is it the government telling John Deere how far away to position their spikes and the kind of equipment that they need to make? And you told me, I mean, what'd you tell me then?
Well, no, I mean, it's more of a farmer-driven thing.
Okay.
And, in a development of early ag industry, we want to make this, that we're trying to do things more efficiently and plant more corn. We're not doing this by hand anymore.
Right.
So the farmer's like, well, hey, I'm going to plant it at such and such. I'm going to build a planter. And then John Deere's like, yeah, we can build that.
Okay.
And we're going to make one of those equipment. Some farmer made some homemade thing.
Yeah.
And then John Deere's like, yeah,
industrializes it. Yeah.
Mass produce that. And then there's other companies too that are like, hey man, they're making money too. We're going to do this too.
Okay. So
we're going to try to make it better. So we're going to go to Farmer Joe. He has the highest producing corn.
Okay.
What's the secret?
Okay.
And he's like, hey, we're going to do 28-inch rows. Or no. Or we're going to split them, or we're going to change, and then, and they work together.
Right, and they work together. Right, so it's the farmer communicating with the manufacturer, and they come up and they produce all these standards. Where did the 30-inch standard come from? Is just the way? I mean,
Probably has to do with the tire size of a tractor.
Okay.
So you drive between the rows. A cultivator.
Okay.
It would have started at 40 inches, and then came down to 30 inches. But then it's also the amount of sunlight that a plant needs.
Okay.
So the spacing, and it is changing. It does change. I think one thing that I've been seeing here in the industry and with corn planters is they'll have a machine, they'll have a bar, or so to speak, and they can put a planting assembly. They can move it whichever way they want. So they can have like a twin row that maybe they're 14 inches apart, with a larger gap in between.
Okay.
And it just depends what you want.
Okay.
You would and people are playing with that.
Okay.
And the as far as the combine, it fits the combine. The combine, because that's standard. It's just what we've been doing before.
Right. But you guys are kind of playing off each other. You both looking at what the other one's doing, the farmer and the manufacturer.
Yeah.
And you're both playing off each other. Like, okay, if you're going to make this machine, then I'm going to plant like this. And if he's like, okay, if you're going to plant like this, I'm going to make this machine. And so the industry keeps on adapting.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah. There's one thing that kind of seems to go out of style is silos. You maybe seen silos. Okay. So. Depending what kind of feed you're blowing in the silos, there's this machine called a blower. We just call it a blower.
Right.
And there's an 8-inch pipe that blows it up into the silo, and that has to be like running at top speed.
Okay.
With everything perfect, right? And with our larger harvesting equipment, the blowers weren't able to blow fast enough. So custom operators that go around and chop for other people, harvest for other people.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we need to figure out we need a blower. So
like a blower that's stronger. Obviously, you had a blower,
yeah,
but
bigger, stronger, faster.
Right.
So
Because the combines, the harvesters
Yeah.
are getting bigger and stronger and faster, and the
Right.
blowers weren't matching the output.
right, and we experienced it too. Like different crop conditions, the feed's a little sticky, won't blow right.
Okay.
And we were just like pulling our hair out. Like we can't just keep climbing this silo and unplugging it and whatever.
wow. Yeah.
And we're basically like, we call it a custom operator. Like, what do you use? And I'm like, this brand field line, and this is like a Joanger. Do you know what a Joanger is?
Yeah, Joe Wenger, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
Yeah, he developed this.
He did.
We're like, doesn't matter what it costs, we're gonna buy one if that's what works.
Okay.
We bought it. Yeah.
Okay.
We've had the same blower for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
we rebuild it.
And so it adapts to these changing conditions. This
Yeah.
is like an adapting.
A farmer said, "Hey, make me a blower that works."
Okay.
So they experimented and this and that, and
Okay.
and the angle that the feed comes in, and the size of the paddle, and the design of it, and the how fast it's moving.
And then the government came in and said, "That's a good idea. I want everyone else to do this." And then we all lived in happy rainbows and butterflies after that, right? No, but at no point did the government ever come in and start regulating this. Okay.
They didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you give me some more examples of things that kind of like all farmers know and manufacturers know, but it's not necessarily the government saying you have to do it this way?
So this wouldn't be like equipment, but manure management.
Okay.
Okay. Do you ever hear of a CAFO?
No.
You know what CAFO is? So when you go over a certain amount of animals concentration in a certain area, government puts a regulation on like, hey, you got to keep track of where your manure goes. Like you can't like just dump it in the river.
Right. Right.
But it's like we're not going to do that. You know. But
Yeah.
one of the things is pulling soil samples.
Okay.
So if you put too much cow manure on a certain field, phosphorus is the main ingredient that will go up.
Okay.
But that actually, if you have too high phosphorus from too much manure, because you have a lot of animals,
Yes.
that actually hurts your crop production.
Okay.
So it's
A variety of animal or like a volume of animals? Like you have too many of the same animal, or do you have too many different animals contributing to the manure?
it's just number of animals,
Okay.
amount of manure.
Okay, amount of
Yeah,
manure.
amount
Okay,
of manure,
and too much phosphorus can damage.
Yes. So if you have a lot of chickens, so to speak, and you're like just dumping it on your land,
Okay.
you know, for the first 2-3 years, you know, the corn's like, yeah, this is great. And then after that, things just kind of don't, you know, the ground will get hard. Phosphorus ties up other nutrients that are needed.
Okay.
And it's just not good. Soon you won't be producing very well.
Okay.
And so farmers soil test vigorously, like most farmers do.
Okay.
Because we're watching that.
Okay.
But the government came along as like, hey, we need a law. We need a law. We need to watch to make sure this doesn't happen because it's getting in our streams and this and that. And we're like, dude, you know how much it costs to put manure on a field, like to haul dairy manure out?
Yeah.
We don't want it going down the stream.
Yeah.
You know, that's fertilizer. We don't want
Yeah.
to buy fertilizer from Russia.
Yeah. Right.
We got it in the
Right.
barn here.
Right,
You know,
right.
so that's a self-regulation.
Right.
You know?
Right. Okay. So yeah. Right. And what the government views as waste, you look at as a product. Like this is like gold to us. Like
It is,
why would
yeah.
we dump gold in the river? Like
And there's different situations where farmers get into buying their manure storage gets full.
okay.
And it's wintertime and there's nothing growing.
Okay. And you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, well, you don't want to haul manure on snow.
Okay.
So we know these things.
Okay.
But there's times where we have to do something because we're at the end of the road.
Right.
And so in our area, we're not so I'm not under a CAFO. So I have more acres. I have enough acres that that they wouldn't require me to be under a CAFO.
Okay.
So they're not checking in on me.
Okay.
Now they're my brother. They are.
Okay.
He has chickens.
Okay.
He has more animals than so the manure coming from his animals. He has not enough of land to haul it on his land.
Okay. Right.
So they keep track of where it goes.
Okay.
And that's so they're not checking in on me, but
Right.
but the self-regulation is
Right.
real.
Yes.
Like, we don't want to put it down the creek. We
Right.
don't want to.
Yeah, but that's again the mind of a politician looks at it as like clearly this is waste, and if we don't have a law, then the farmers will be wasting it, and people will be getting poisoned all over the place. But that's the mind of a politician. They just like you said, when people come from New Jersey or from New York and they come down, they're like, oh wow, cow, and then they get all these ideas of what farming is like and how you can't leave a cow out in the wintertime. And then and suddenly you give these same people the ability to make laws.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? They're going to start making laws out of complete ignorance of your whole industry.
Yeah. Now the thing that I come into question is people that don't love their neighbors and are like, I don't really care about whatever. So maybe one of the things that would prompt a CAFO is, the Chesapeake. You ever heard of Chesapeake? The high levels of
water, the watersheds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, high levels of phosphorus in the water.
Okay.
And they're saying it's coming off the land.
Okay.
All right. Now there's different places where it comes off. It's not just farmers either polluting the Chesapeake River, the Chesapeake Bay.
Right.
But you might have farmers that don't care about people downstream.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they're like, well, I don't care if I haul in the snow or not.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting, and I think it's Exodus 20. Is it Exodus 21? God says, "Look, listen. If you have a fire break out on your property and it gets in your neighbor's property, you're the one at fault.
Right.
You have to pay restitution. If it starts on your property and gets to his and messes up, guess you have to pay." Wow. And so there are these principles and in God's law that deals with what happens if my waste affects another neighbor or my actions affect my neighbor. Yeah. God puts the fault at you. And so we already have laws that deal with these that require just a judge.
That's so cool.
I mean, your dad, being semi-retired, if he was a judge and dispute farming cases between his own people, they go to him, hey, instead of going to the state, hey, this guy's phosphorus is getting into my water supply. Oh, no, it's not. That's not mine. Okay, we'll do an investigation. We'll find out where it's coming from. And if it's true, either you have to pay him money or you got to stop. One of the two things. But if it's not true, then you got to find out where this phosphorus is coming from and find the source of it, and then we'll deal with that later. But we'll solve disputes. And that's what Moses was saying to the people in Deuteronomy. Like, I established these judges to establish justice between a man and his neighbor. Mm-hmm. There is no state involved. There's no political class being the victim here. Right. And that's what they do. Like, Randall, if they brought you into court, guess what it would be? It would be Zimmerman versus the people. Mm-hmm. What people? It's just this lawyer has no idea what I'm doing. Right. There's nobody complaining, like Amos Miller. Right. Nobody complaining. It's the people versus Amos Miller. What people? Mm-hmm. You mean the political class? I mean the state trying to get money and this hotshot lawyer trying to get another wind under his belt up the political ladder? Mm-hmm. Those people are hurt by my raw milk selling? Mm-hmm. And so that's what that's what justice is. Mm-hmm. It's solving disputes between a man and his neighbor. Right. And God's law, and what we try to point out here all the time is that God's law has given us enough information on how to do that. Mm-hmm. Because he says in Micah 6:8, he has shown you, right? Yeah. Not he's showing you over time, and he will show you. It's he has shown you what's good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly. Right? And so when we establish, and this is something I say all the time, but when we establish a legislature in our land, this is my criticism of the Constitution. When we establish a legislature, we're assuming that he has not shown us what's just. Mm-hmm. We're assuming. He's like, no, I've shown you how to live peaceably with your neighbor. Mm-hmm. And if you look in Book of Judges, obviously they had 40 years of peace and then 80 years of rest and then 40 years and then 40 years. And they had all this rest all over the place, unmatched by any other book of the Bible. But they were just using God's law, no legislature. And the kings is when they established the legislature. But, they were able to have all this rest and they just used God's law to do it. And that claim by God, like, I've shown you what's just. Mm-hmm. You don't need a political class to tell you, okay, new rule, this is just now, and this is unjust. Mm-hmm. You doing 65 and a 45 is unjust. Oh, for Pete's sakes. That's ridiculous. And Randall, you didn't clean your barn. That's unjust. No, it's not. That's my business. Mm-hmm. If I want to have a crappy barn, that's between me and my customers and my animals and my family. That's it. No state needs to be involved.
Right. It's between you and the customers.
You and the customers. Yeah. But again, if the customer hauls you into court, that's justice between a man and his neighbor. Right? I want justice. There's a problem. Let's dispute. When Solomon was hit with I bring this up all the time, but when Solomon was hit with the two prostitutes, it's interesting that he was given justice to prostitutes. Even sexual perverts get better justice under God's law than under man's law. But he was giving justice to these two prostitutes, and they said, the baby's mine. And he said, okay, we'll cut the baby in half. And then the mother was like, no, let her keep it. And he's like, okay, I figured it out. But there was no law saying that if you come across two prostitutes and they're fighting over a baby, you cut the baby in half. There was no case law that he could point to. He was getting the most difficult cases, and that's what was supposed to happen in Israel. The easy ones, you guys figure out among yourselves, kick the difficult ones up. And so I guess we went through a couple judges, and they're like, I don't know how to solve this one because No DNA test. No DNA test. And so they kicked up Solomon. Solomon was like, okay, I'll figure this out. And he did. And he had no law that dealt specifically with this problem in the Bible, but yet he still had enough wisdom to do it. That's awesome. And that's the beauty of God's system. And if you look at Job chapter 20, I'm ranting here, but Job chapter 29, he's like, I sat down at the gates, and the widow and the orphan that came to me, I gave everybody justice. He was just sitting down at the gates, and he was listening to people's problems. He said, I searched out the cause of him I did not know. Right? People I didn't know would come to me, and I would search out his cause. Didn't know him, and everyone who came to me got justice. Name me one legislator in the history. I mean, I've been a couple times I went lobbying at our state capitol in Harrisburg, and when you look online at the accolades of these people, and you compare it to what Job's accolades were, like, I gave the widow and the orphan justice. I snatched the innocent from the fangs of the wicked. I searched out the cause of him. And a princess stopped their mouth when I sat down to give justice. It was just a great thing. Yeah. I gave justice to people. That was his accolades. But the accolades of our own people, when you look them up online, they're like, back in 2002, he passed a bill that benefited older Americans. That's it. Or back in, she's had a long, successful career in Harrisburg, and she helped pass the CARE Act, which helps people in wheelchairs. Okay, great. Nobody could match Job's accolades of what he was able to do with God's position of judge that he delegated in Deuteronomy 16. I want you to establish judges, but also God's law. And so the position and the law, Job was able to give people justice that were coming to him, and Solomon was doing that as well. Wow. But that's one thing that we're always trying to promote here on this podcast and Future of Christendom. The abolishment of the political class that only exists really. I mean, Satan loves perverting God's law, right? And our purpose. Mm-hmm. Right, a bad father does everything except love his family. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to love and take care and lead his family, but a bad father does everything except that. Mm-hmm. Our government right now is doing everything except the thing that they're supposed to be doing: avenging the wrongdoer. Mm-hmm. You're there to avenge the wrongdoer. Mm-hmm. They're doing everything but, and they're only existing right now to harass us. With each new bill, with each new law that they pass, we lose more freedom. Right, we just lose more and more. You lose more. Mm-hmm. And as we've seen, the communists, the more they get in power, they hate farmers. They just hate their guts. For some reason, I don't know what's wrong with you communists. You guys hate farmers. But the communists says they really hate farmers. And it always blows my mind how much they will do once they get in power. Like the first people gone are the farmers.
Well, that's because we're free thinkers. We think for ourselves.
I guess so. They don't.
Yeah. They have a problem. We got to figure it out ourselves.
Got to figure it out yourself.
Yeah. So we don't follow, not that we don't follow rules, but we just think we know what we look for what's best.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's all part of dominion. You see chaos and you produce order out of it. You take it and you produce order. That's part of dominion. Yeah. Not domination, you knuckleheads. People always say, "Oh, you like dominion? Oh, you like dominating people?" No, not dominating. Oh, for Pete's sakes. Well, thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your insight and your input. I get frustrated just hearing your stories about some guy who doesn't know, the difference between, a steer and a cow and all that kind of stuff, which I'm not saying I do, but I'm not out there inspecting his land. Why would I do something like that? I just have no respect for somebody who's like, let me be an inspector, and I don't know the difference between a Holstein and a hoof. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I get frustrated when I'm like, the most important people that we should be celebrating in our land are the people who produce, food. Maybe we should be like protecting them and giving them an easy life as much as we can, but we harass you guys. Mm-hmm. Our nation harasses you guys, and it just drives me nuts.
And to be honest, like, I feel like farming is we've been actually given, I feel like, the most freedom. Like look at like child labor laws. Mm-hmm. I can hire like family members. They don't have to be a certain age. Mm-hmm. They can drive tractors, whatever, on your own property.
Right. Okay.
Like as far as the tax code, if you're farming, there's farm exempt. Because we're making the food.
Right.
Now there's another arm that says like, okay, this is what it costs to in the store.
Right. Yes. Right. And can you talk about that real quick? Why would a gallon of milk? I mean, the idea behind gas being so expensive was because it's a limited resource, right? Why is a gallon of milk right now more expensive than a gallon of gas? I mean, because it's unlimited, right? Why would it be something so common I can get it anywhere at any time? Why is it so expensive?
Well, so like, you know, I figure out my own, like what it costs to make milk. Okay. And then we established the law of pasteurization. So a milk company, they put on their they put on their fee for hauling and bottling and marketing. Okay. But the big thing of it is, and you say, why is it so expensive? So if you figure the cost of production, mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's that expensive actually.
Okay.
So just to keep things straight here.
Okay.
So I think it could be more actually.
Okay.
Now the free market could adjust that.
Okay. But isn't there some sort of government interference in the price of milk?
There is. So they establish what it's sold for. And
why?
Federal government.
Why?
Okay. So 1940s. I actually had to do some research on this.
Okay.
But nobody really knows what the formula is.
Okay.
Like how do they come up with the number?
Okay.
All us farmers know is that number is just enough that we don't go out of business, but we're crazy enough just to keep on farming and keep on cows. We're talking dairy here.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
And they just make that price just right there where we don't like just give up, throw in the towel. But yet we keep farming and we keep innovating and making like our costs less to make do. And they from the 1940s they're supplying, they're saying they're controlling like supply and demand.
Right. Of an unlimited resource. And so and that's why I say like they're harassing you. Mm-hmm. That's harassment. You know, them setting the price. How about you sell it the way that you want to sell it, and you guys compete with each other, and then we and you know that's how we make money.
My last thing too that I've been just listening and like kind of researching too is not researching, but like I've been thinking about is they have this report, USDA report. Okay. So basically, it's intended to give a report of dairy ag, how much hay is being grown, how much corn, how much beans, so we can make better decisions, right?
Okay.
You know, like I'm not gonna grow beans this year. I'm gonna grow corn, because the corn prices are gonna be higher because there's less out there, whatever it might be, cows, beef, dairy.
Right.
So they come to your farm, or they call you, or they send stuff in the mail. Okay. And I file it. In the trash. And then they call and they're asking, they want to know exactly, how much did you plant? How much small grain, how much hay, how much corn? Mm-hmm. And they're saying like, yeah, we can give you the report too for free. And then you can make better decisions.
Okay. Right. Because you're like, okay, everyone grew corn this year. Mm-hmm. So that means corn's going to be low.
So that's the thought process.
Yeah. Right.
But so people that aren't farmers take this information and they use it against us. They're like, oh, wow. So the corn's high. There's a lot of corn growing this year. So we're going to invest in corn.
Oh.
And they manipulate the market.
Oh, my goodness.
So they're using our information. So and the way they forced you to get the information is through crop insurance. So that's a subsidized program. Okay. So if you don't have crop insurance, you can be like, that's okay.
Okay, yeah.
Block caller. Yeah. Right? But I see it from like larger businesses using it against farmers.
Oh, wow.
They'll buy a grain at harvest that's a little lower, and then they'll resell it, and they can manipulate whether it's cheese, milk, whatever. So
if we're up to you, I mean, is this like a farming wide thing? Do farmers look at it like, I would really wish? It might be helpful for me to know, okay, everyone's growing corn this year. I'd rather than this information not be out there because it's ultimately harmful. I mean,
so we pretty much on the smaller scale. Yeah. We don't. I'm a small farmer. Yeah. So we don't. A field that had soybeans in, we grow corn. We rotate our crops. Right. And we do what's best for the land. Right. Because what's best for the land is best for us.
Okay. Right. So if we didn't have the government there to tell him that, he would have never known. He would never been able to figure it out by himself. I'm just joking. Sarcasm. Go ahead.
But I mean, we're not swinging one way or the other.
Okay.
Due to like wow, China's not buying soybeans.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
So we better not grow soybeans.
Ultimately irrelevant to you, but the big farms that are selling and making razor thin profits.
Yeah, they might be looking at it actually more than what I am.
Okay.
But the majority of farms,
I think aren't looking at it.
Okay. It's not even useful to them.
I don't think so. No,
But
it's not useful for me.
But ultimately, it affects you negatively.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be a good thing.
Right.
It's supposed to,
Right.
but it's not.
And that's what I keep trying to point out to people. Like whatever problem you're solving, you just make it worse. Because you don't give people what makes business and prosperity great is this thing called freedom. And the government its role is supposed to be an avenger. You're supposed to avenge people who do wrong according to God's standard. You're supposed to avenge, not prevent and not protect. That's a byproduct of justice. If we all get justice in the land, we'll have protection and we'll have prevention. However, if you take away justice, it doesn't matter how much you try to protect or prevent, it's not going to matter. Justice is the most important thing. Justice and righteousness it established in the land is how we prosper, is how we have protection and prevention. It's these kind of things that we're always trying to point to. And I talk about, my friend Randall and the things that he has to go through for no reason. For no reason. No good reason that you have to go through these things because these politicians are up there making decisions where they shouldn't be making decisions. You have any final thoughts you want to share?
I don't know. I will. Yeah, I do really, really love farming, and I want it there for my family.
Yeah.
And I grew up farming. My dad, we want to go play volleyball. We were always late to volleyball tournaments.
Okay.
Because I had to milk cows.
Yeah, of course.
Go running in, the person organizing, it was like, really?
Yeah, right.
Roy's like waking up at 3 a.m. delivering chips so he can be there too.
Yeah,
we're all
right.
meeting somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Effort somewhere, But yeah, I just, I really enjoy it, know. And
I can tell that from talking to you. It's written all over you that you love farming.
So yeah, and we're figuring out ways that we can make things better and more efficient and just preserving, I think it's a great way to raise a family. And
right.
we're showing them how to do things with their hands.
Right. There's got to be
not book knowledge. It's
right. It's got to be so much reward, for growing a crop, is successfully selling off, getting the money and all that kind of stuff. There's got to be so much reward. I get so much reward, like you saw my wood shop, just making a cutting board.
Yeah.
And if I'm just getting so happy and amped up just from making a cutting board, I can't imagine what it's like to successfully, maybe deliver a calf and then sell the calf, or going to auction, selling your stuff, and getting contracts with buyers and buying a harvester. I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, it's and you build. I'm building on. I'm so grateful. I'm building my farm on my livelihood on what my dad did.
Okay.
And kind of back to the Mennonite thing at the beginning, where I wouldn't be where I'm at without my dad sacrificing.
Right.
And I'm doing that for my kids.
Right. And that's such a strong Christian philosophy. This idea that we identify, since Christ, sacrificed himself on the cross, he set the ultimate example of sacrifice. Christians now automatically we identify with this idea of self-sacrifice, and we love it. Whereas the pagans, they hate it. So everyone's got to sacrifice for me. The pagan kingdoms, we all sacrifice for the guy on top.
Yeah.
But Christ setting this standard of, I want to sacrifice. The most important person in the world, in the universe, God. I'm going to sacrifice myself for you, Christ. Right? Christ is going to sacrifice himself for us. And so we love that so much. We're like, that's how you live. Self-sacrifice. And that really just drives me nuts with these fake Christians who defend abortion. And they're like, if the mother, she might die, or, if she's unhealthy and the baby's a risk. I'm like, see, you claim Christ, but you have no idea about self-sacrifice. You don't relate to it. It's foreign to you. It's a bad idea. Wow. As Christians, it's a good idea to us. Self-sacrifice. Of course the mother's going to sacrifice for the baby. Our Savior sacrificed himself for us. Wow. So we relate to that idea. We celebrate that. Every year. We celebrate that at Easter, at Christmas. We're always celebrating sacrifice of self, not other people for me, but I sacrifice for my family. You sacrifice for your family. Your father sacrificed, and you appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you do the same for others. You pass it on. That's such a Christian philosophy. It's a Christian concept. Not to say that everyone who's not a Christian doesn't identify it or like it, but Christ setting the ultimate example and instituting that in the mind and nature of a Christian, it's just ultimately going to spread through the world, and it's going to overtake the world. You know, me being a post-millennialist, it's going to overtake the world, and I think more and more cultures should identify with this idea of self-sacrifice. But that's my little spiel on sacrifice there. Well, thanks a lot, Randall, for coming on the show today, man.
So encouraging, Luke. I appreciate it.
Yeah, really great discussion. And I think a lot of people who listen to this will have a lot of questions answered. Might have you back on if there's enough people saying, well, you forgot to ask Randall this, and I want to know this about that. How does he get any sleep? All that kind of stuff. And
you're probably wondering why I was sweating at the beginning profusely.
Yeah, I was just walking through the property. So first time Randall's been at my house, and he's always wanted to come down and check it out. And now I want to go check out his house, and Lord willing, we'll do that. So, but thanks everybody for listening to this edition of the Think and Reform podcast. If you have any questions, just comment below. And hopefully, if we have enough questions and enough attention, we'll have Randall back on. He can do some Q&A. So thanks, everybody, for listening. This is the Think and Reform podcast. My name is Luke Saint. And remember, my friends, think and reform.